You know, community involvement and community connection can make such a difference. I think a lot of people that live in Manhattan maybe don't realize the extent of the poverty that we have in our town, that over 30% of our town lives in poverty. And I think that when we look at how do we change things for our future of Manhattan, we really have to invest in the kids who are staying here.
What's going on, everybody? Kyle Powers here, Haven Real Estate Group at eXp Realty, here with another episode of Local Legends of the Flint Hills, where business meets community. I've got a very special guest here with me, msink. She is the director of Big Brothers Big Sisters here in the Manhattan, Riley County community. Michelle, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited to dive into this here. So talk to us a little bit about what Big Brothers Big Sisters is about.
Sure. So Big Brothers Big Sisters is really a one-to-one mentoring program. The thing that sets us apart that would be different from maybe something that you do maybe through a church or through another organization would be that we actually have case managers. So it is a one-to-one mentoring case managed relationship. So I think that really helps the safety of not only the littles in our program, but also the volunteers and mentors in our program as well.
Yeah. No, yeah. That's awesome. So kind of asking a little bit personally, obviously, what kind of drew you to this organization and why did you decide to come here and help out?
Sure. So I feel like I've always been very community minded, and learning about Big Brothers Big Sisters and thinking of kind of my light bulb moment of how do we make an impact. And I think that there's a lot of us that have sat in, whether it's a Chamber of Commerce meeting, at city commission meetings, things like that. We always talk about the kids who are going to work here, stay here, play here. And also one of our biggest challenges seems to be how do we keep our young workforce here? And there was a time when I thought the kids who are going to work here, stay here, play here are the kids that are in my program. Right. And as community members, if we would take the time to invest in the kids that qualify for my program, could we change what the future of Manhattan looks like? Not probably 5 years from now, but what about 10 years from now, right. 15, 20 years from now? What if those kids are the ones that are going to vo-tech school, that are joining the workforce, that are starting their businesses, and they want to stay here because they had mentors and a community that helped them?
With what you said, just kind of rolls into my next question, right? So Big Brothers Big Sisters has a big mission, and you want to make that big impact for the community. So what impact are you seeing in your mentorship and in your littles and your bigs, and what changes have you been able to see there?
So I think one of the most impactful things that I've seen in the last 5 years is really seeing more community members being involved. One of the things we always say is that when we have a match, it doesn't just change one person's life, it changes two. And that's the big and the little, and the difference we see that makes. It's been really awesome to see more of our community members getting involved. When I first started here 5 years ago, about 95% of our bigs and mentors were K-State students, which we love our K-State students, don't get me wrong. But we also know that we often have like a shelf life on those relationships. By the time they get to us, we know that we probably have a maximum of 2 to 3 years. And one of the studies that we've done, we know that the longer that those relationships last, the more impactful that they are. I think that we've really seen, especially after COVID. So I started in 2020 during COVID, and I think that we really saw a huge need for people just showing up for a kid, and the difference that just having that person show up for them can make. Yeah. You don't have to be a rock star. You are a rock star when you're a mentor, but I think that we very often underestimate the impact that we make in people's lives that we meet every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I love that. And that, I mean, that's what a lot of people don't understand is that, just showing up and being consistent for some of these kids is big. I mean, it's really big opportunity for someone to make a small change in their life, but a big change in a child's life that way. So, actually that brings me to my next point. If you have multiple, I'd love to hear them, but what are some success stories or some of those moments or some of those times that, one of the success stories that have really stuck with you?
Sure. So I'd love to talk about my little sister a little bit. We have been matched since she was in kindergarten, and she'll be going into fourth grade next year. We were one of the first school-based matches since COVID, after when the schools reopened. And it's been so awesome to see her confidence grow. We talk about things like when you make a mistake, because trust me, I make more than one a day. And and when her and I are together and that happens, I talk about, how, okay, well, that happened. There's nothing I can do to change that. And, but I need to, what can I do to make it right? Yeah. And so we talk a lot about those kinds of things. And I really think that I've seen that maturity in her, when she talks to me about things that happen at school or at home, which has been really fun. Yeah. We started off, honestly, with her being in kindergarten and very quiet. We played Foursquare, and I read to her for a year, and I think she said like 7 words mostly. And I would just like win a game, let her win a game. But then the next year we talked more, and we talked about things she wanted to learn and do. And she worked on her reading. And then when we came back from that break in summer and we started again, the first thing she wanted to do was show me her reading. And so I think that it really helps her get involved in school.
Yeah.
But also we have a mutual friend, Rob Wild, who is an amazing big brother. And it's really also been cool to see what, with his little, kind of the same thing, how shy and quiet he started off, and then to hear the things that Rob did to help them connect, and how that's really helped him grow in also his school, but his social abilities as well, which I think has been really great. We have matches that have been together for 8, 10, 12 years. Wow. And all of those are community members here. And a lot of them are big brothers, which is also super great. We have this one match, Alex and Nate, and they come to all of our parades that we do. And it's been fun, just to watch them over the years, to have Nate, where he would show up and be so quiet. And now, if we ask him, hey, will you help us put this float together? Or what do you think? And he has all of these great ideas, and he has that confidence to talk about them. Yeah. And Alex also is married and has 2 kids of his own. But he has been a big brother to Nate for 8 years, and still takes that time out of that to invest in him. They do stuff with not just Nate and Alex, but also sometimes with his family. Yeah. But that's been, I think, really great, and Nate's family is very thankful for that as well. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, and I guess I think some of the things that a lot of people don't understand when they're looking at it and everything there is how does it all work, right? How do you match? How do they get into the program? How do they volunteer? How do the kids get into the program, and everything that way? And so I guess that'd be one question I'd be curious about is how does it all work?
Yeah, I think that is a really great question. We have 2 ways that you can be a mentor in our program or a volunteer. One of those is as a community volunteer, community big. And with that, you go pick up your little from their home, and you go do stuff outside of their house. That can be doing things like making dinner. It can be going to the grocery store. It can be tossing the ball around. It can be playing video games. And then we also have a school-based match, which that's what Sophia and I have been for the last 4 years. And I go meet with her at lunch once a week for about 30 minutes. And we only meet during the school year. So we don't meet over the summertime, and we also don't meet over the holidays. But we can still make a huge impact in that child's life. So as a volunteer, once you put in an inquiry, we have you go through an info session, which is just about a 15-minute, little bit more in-depth experience for what the program is. And then after you do that, we have you do a little bit more paperwork, because if we made being a big super, super easy, we might have people that signed up for it, but maybe didn't actually have the full commitment to follow through.
Makes sense.
And so then we have about a 1 to 2 hour interview process with one of our caseworkers, which they're our match support specialist. And with that, we look for what are the things that you like, and what gets you excited. Because when we do our matches, we don't just do a first in and first out. We do what we call a best fit match. Yeah. And so what that means is that we're going to look for the qualities and hobbies and things like that. And we're going to help match those up between the big and the little to help make that a more successful relationship.
Yeah.
And then once we've done our interview process and all of our background checks and you're approved to be a big, we actually do what we call a file showing. And with that, the match support specialists select littles on our wait list that they think would be a good match for you. And you read through a little bit of information about them, and then you actually pick your own little. So you kind of already have that investment, and you know a little bit about that kid and what their background has been. But also for our families. So all of the kids in our program are facing some level of adversity, and that adversity can look very different. That adversity could be trouble with school. It could be being bullied, but it could also be being the bully. It could be problems with socialization. There's kind of there's quite a few things that can contribute to what will help you with the success, of your life. And so we do an interview process because we also want to learn what the family dynamics are like. We want to learn what the little is like. And we also want to make sure that everyone that is going to be involved in our program is invested in this relationship. Yeah. So it's not just that we have one person trying to help a kid who doesn't necessarily want maybe somebody to show up for them. Sure. That the youth that's being enrolled, they want that big to be in their life, and their family also wants that extra support into their child's life. And I think because of the process that we go through, really making sure that we have the commitment and buy-in of everyone is one of the things that contributes to the success of our program and those relationships.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I guess I didn't realize, personally, I didn't realize how much you guys actually went through. I assumed it with any volunteers and things that way. I've assumed just working with kids, but I didn't realize how much you put the families and stuff through it. So that's pretty cool too that you're able to do that.
Yeah. Can I say some more about that?
Yeah, please.
So one of the things we're also going to be working on is how do we help more of our families and our parents. So we're going to be working next year on providing extra support for them, whether it's maybe having some extra classes and social time and times that they can get to know each other and be around each other as well for our families. Then also to be a big, it's not just individuals. We also have couples matches and family matches. Yeah. So what that would mean is that if we had two partners and they wanted to have a little together, if it's a male partner and a female partner, we would always ask that you have a little brother, because our wait list is going to be 75% little brothers pretty consistently. Yeah. And but what we do is we put you both through the same interview process. We put you both through the same background checks, and then but then you're able to both transport your youth and your little by yourselves. Otherwise, if you're an individual big, you can still do stuff with your little and your spouse and your family. It's just that no one should be allowed to be alone with that little other than yourself. Right. So that's a little bit of that difference in there. And so kind of the same with the families. If a family wants to all be kind of involved in more of a regular basis, it's not being a foster family, and we do not ever try to replace the parents in that situation. But it's really just more of a, hey, do you want to come hang out with me and my kids more often? So.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved.
So many.
Yeah. That's what I took from all of that.
No excuse.
There's no excuse. That's right. That's right. When you first started, K-State was 95% of your bigs and things that way. You've chipped away at it based on what you just told me. You've chipped away at it. You're at about 70% K-State, the 30% being community involvement. So I'd like to touch base or at least give you the opportunity to explain or have people understand like how important that community involvement actually is and why the number's great for K-State students, but why having that community involvement and having them for those 8, 10, 12 years and why that's important for these kids and why that involvement of the community is such a big play.
Sure. Well, I think first to start off of like why, how that longer term relationship is so important. I think a lot of it has to do with, there's a lot of kids in our program that have suffered maybe potentially extensive loss in their lives, loss of relationships. And so when we have those turnovers, a lot of times kids will internalize, what did I do wrong that made them leave? Even if it just was that I graduated from college and now I'm moving to Kansas City for my job, that we are happy for our bigs when they're doing that. But a lot of times the littles in our program can internalize that in a way that we do not intend to. And I think that's where that, community involvement and community connection can make such a difference. I think a lot of people that live in Manhattan maybe don't realize the extent of the poverty that we have in our town, that over 30% of our town lives in poverty. A lot of the kids in our program, their household income is $25,000 a year or less. And I think that when we look at how do we change things for our future of Manhattan, we really have to invest in the kids who are staying here. And I think I will fully tell you that when I took this position, I did not understand what the cycle of poverty and the cycle of adversity really meant, and how hard it is to change that. But I think that if all of us would just take a little bit of time to invest in one kid, we could make a difference. What
you just said, that the community impact that we have on this one is that what are those real numbers, right? Like how many are in your program, how many are unmatched, and then how many could you serve if we had an unlimited number of bigs, right? And how many could we do at that point, right? I know you're just like, oh my gosh, that'd be amazing, right? But I think that's important to know, right? Like, because I know that you have that opportunity. So what are those numbers?
Sure. So year to date, we have served 167 kids. We have about 45 on our wait list. We'll actually add about another 15 to that just because of our K-State matches that are closing. And a lot of those families will go ahead and re-enroll their kids into our program. So they'll need to be rematched. And just based on income alone, not any other part of the ACEs test, 1,000 kids at least in USD 383 that would qualify for our program. Just in Manhattan. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. It really is. And I think that when if you start looking into like how many kids receive the free and reduced lunches, here's really, if you're on free and reduced lunch plan, you probably qualify for our program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild. Absolutely wild. Just knowing that there's that much out there and just kind of understanding that aspect of it all, I think is important too. But no, it's just crazy. So Michelle, I guess let's kind of shift gears a little bit for you. What if someone's watching this video and they're thinking, man, I really want to get involved, I just don't know how? What would you say to them if they're on the fence or just kind of don't know? What would you say to them at that point?
Sure. So I think that one of the things that has been really fun to me is we have a couple of new match support specialists right now. And one of the things that they ask a big when they're first meeting them is what would you tell someone who is thinking about becoming a big that you thought was going to be hard and then ended up maybe not being as hard? Yeah. And I think the number one answer is time. that a lot of people say, I don't have time for that. And, if you've ever been watching Netflix and it's popped up the, are you still watching message, then you have time to be a big.
Yeah.
Do you eat lunch? Most people do, not everyone, but if you take a lunch break at some time during the day, you have time to be a big. So I think that the myth of like, well, it's so hard. Well, I think that the time commitment is what people are nervous about, and the time commitment is not that big. And it's really not that, it's not that difficult. We're not asking you to teach these kids life lessons every time you meet.
Yeah.
We want you to hang out and show up for somebody.
Yeah. And just be consistent.
Yeah, the consistency, like just showing up, makes a difference.
Yeah. I think so. I think that's probably one of the bigger things that I've seen of being in this realm of it, is just being consistent and just showing up with them is making big changes, big strides in these kids' lives too. I think that's the big thing that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, it's really huge.
Yeah. Yeah. With that said, right, like being consistent and just showing up for these kids. Let's say somebody watching this wants to get involved.
Yeah.
How do they reach out? How do they get a hold of you? How do they start that process? What does that look like? And just kind of walk us through that a little bit, and then we can go from there.
Sure. So I would say the easiest way is to go to our website, which is this Kansas Bigs, BIGS spelled out, kansasbigs.org. And then there is a button up there to become a mentor. And it's a 2 minutes worth of information. You put that in, then I reach out to you to schedule an info session. And then when you learn a little bit more, we go from there. I think that if you're thinking about it right now, because this is what I would say, is I'm guilty of thinking about it right now, and then I think I'm going to do that later, and then later becomes a day, and then a week, and then I don't do it. And so I think if you're even just called a little bit to learn more, just to do it right this second, and then learn more, and then go from there, because you're not committed. Once you've just by filling out that inquiry, you're not committed to that. And that is like the best way to get started. Because I will admit that I thought about being a big probably 2 or 3 times before working here. And, but I would think about it and then not do it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's right. Analysis paralysis. I mean, that's what we do. We all do it. We're all human in that sense of it. So, and I think the other thing too, to for anybody watching to understand is that you don't necessarily have to be a big. You can be a donor. You can be support in other ways. And is there anything you want to say about that as far as how else they can support?
Sure. So I am a big time, talent, treasure person. I know that there's often times that we only have one of those, or sometimes we have all 3. But kind of to talk about the cost of what it takes for us to support a match for 1 year. It's between $1,500 and $2,000. And we do only have operational costs. Here at Kansas Big Brothers Big Sisters in Riley County, we have the office, which we don't pay any overhead for. I'll take Kyle up to see the bats later. But really, all of the money that gets donated to us goes to pay for our match support specialists, who are the caseworkers that are keeping those relationships safe. The first year of a match, the match support specialist will meet with the big, the little, and the family individually for a check-in at least once a month for the first year. After that, it goes to quarterly, but anytime we start a new match, so if somebody, if a U3 enrolls in the program, we start that over again. But it's so important that we're able to provide that. And so I think raising money and donations are the most important, and they don't go to anything except for recruiting bigs and paying for that match support, which is vital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. No, that's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about the future.
Love the future.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. So what does the future of Big Brothers Big Sisters look like for you?
Yeah, so I think in my perfect world, everyone that watched this video already put us on pause. They filled out their inquiry, and we're going to just talk about becoming a big. But I think really just to consider us to be successful every year, the more kids we can serve, the longer we can serve those kids is a success. I think one of the things we've changed in the last 5 years is having longevity and staff, which didn't always used to be a thing. And so I'm really excited that the last 5 years we've really worked on that. But I think that the more kids that we can serve and then the longer, I would love to have more of those stories where, like Sophia and I matched since kindergarten. And then someday for me to say, we were matched since she was 5, and now I got to see her graduate from high school, and then I got to see her get married, and I got to like see her kids, and just to have more of those long-term relationships. But I mean, really pulling kids off the wait list, helping them get matched, would be amazing.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. And I guess kind of right before we wrap it all up, is there anything else you want to add to this video or anything in between?
Only one. So we do have some upcoming events. We have our annual event, which is called the Manhattan. In the past, it's been a bourbon tasting. This year, we're changing it up a little bit because I love a good theme party. And so our new tagline for this is that the investment you make today will make a difference for decades. And so we're going to have a decade party of the 50s coming up on September 20th. So we're moving it from a Thursday to a Saturday. But it's a great time just to get out with friends, learn more about the program, meet people who are bigs, talk with them about their experience, because I think that's another great way to learn.
Sure. No, that's awesome. I appreciate it. So, well, and again, thank you, Michelle, for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. I hope it was been pretty painless for you on that end of it.
It's been great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. And for those of you that are still with us here and watching, I just want to say thank you so much for watching up to this point. And the other thing I'll tell you, just get involved. I think the thing that we all, and I'm guilty of it too, right? I think the thing we all think is that analysis paralysis of like, oh, I can't do this because of this, or I can't do this because of this. But 30 minutes, that's all you need on a weekly basis to go have lunch. Right? Whatever that looks like for you, even that little bit of help is just very powerful for these kids, and just being consistent in their lives and being that rock for them is potentially better than what they're getting on most days. So it can make a big difference, and I would highly recommend that you get involved and just reach out, right? Just reach out and just talk to Michelle and her team and just see how you can help and what that looks like. So highly recommend on checking them out and on this end of it. So, but until next time, I really do appreciate you guys watching up until this point. If you do have any questions or concerns or anything that way, please reach out to Michelle on thekansasbigs.com. You can get that one out there and just see how you can get involved in that. Thank you again for watching, and if you haven't done so already, go and hit that subscribe button, go and hit that little bell so you get notified of any future videos. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and go ahead and share this video with somebody that may be interested in potentially getting involved or just kind of starting to learn the process. Michelle, I think, went through a great, laid out a great opportunity for us to understand what the program's about and what the organization's about. So go ahead and reach out to them. And again, thank you, and we'll see you next time on Local Legends at the Flint Hills. We'll talk to you soon.